Hello, my friends. Saturday, August 18th, back at the farm, putting fence. It's about 6 something. Days are getting shorter. And I stopped putting fence because there's a lightning storm. There you go. Right a little bit south of me and behind me. It's kind of moving behind me and going down. But there were some very close lightning strikes. You know, the type that you see the light and you hear the noise immediately. And I said, I'm not going to take any chances. I'll call it a day. It was already late. So I'm just taking a little break before I unpack all the crap and get back home. I put a corner brace today, and I was about to start pulling wire from it when I started getting those thunders and lightning strikes. But anyway, that's not the point of this video. I wanted to make, I don't know, not a video response, but just a comment on a video that Mike Helton, he has a channel that I follow. He's a older gentleman. I mean, not older. I mean, he's probably 10 years older than me or something like that. He was expressing concern over a garden during social collapse, or she hit the fan. And I've heard this concern from other people as well, and I think he was mostly trying to get people engaged in a dialogue to discuss this. But he was saying, well, what if your garden basically acts as a to attract people, unwanted people, gets you unwanted attention because you get food and you're growing stuff that people want, and everybody's starving and so on and so forth. It's a legitimate concern, but I think it's overplayed a lot. And I would say that regardless, get a garden going. I mean, she hits a fan, well, you kick some dirt over it and you're done if you don't want it. But in the meantime, you learn how to garden and you have a garden and you eat good, right? If you don't like it, well, you just get rid of it. It doesn't take much to kill a garden, really. You got to work quite a bit to keep it alive. That's one thing. But if you were to get a garden, what would you grow for that kind of scenario? And I would say that there's a couple of things to having a healthy diet and being nourished properly, especially when you're doing a lot of physical work and you are just exhausted and under stress and so on and so forth. You need your carbs, basically your calories. You need proteins, and you need your vitamins or your nutrients. And a garden cannot give you all of that, right? A garden cannot give you protein. Well, it can and it can't. Indirectly, it can, but it can. A garden can give you starches, potatoes, rice, this and that, right? Corn, and it can also provide you with herbs for flavoring food, and it can also provide you with leafy greens that have real high in vitamins, which is what you want during winter, like kale and Swiss chard, so on and so forth. So the question is, what would you grow? And one of the concerns was, well, you don't want to attract that many people. Okay, that's fine. I have two kind of lines of thought on this. I would say that a good garden, if you have the space, if you live out in the country or something, if you have a backyard, you would not hurt yourself by having a couple of nut trees, pecans, walnuts, whatever kind of nut tree you can have. Those trees provide abundantly once they start producing. They take a long time to produce, but the best time to plant trees today, and the second best time was, or the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is today, right? So get started with a nut tree. You can also get some peaches. They grow relatively easy. A lot of sugar in them, and they're very resistant. Hell, you can even make some spirits out of it. Peaches, plums, pears. The pears are hardy. Starchy abundant trees. Those trees will give you more caloric output than anything you grow on a 10 by 10 plot. Just the way it is. If you have several, then you have a lot of abundance there. And when I said that a garden does not provide protein, well, it does, because those kind of trees attract a lot of squirrels, a lot of rabbits, deer, all these other animals. If you're out in the country, pigs, that, well, you don't have, if you got deer in your garden, you don't have a garden, you have a deer garden, basically. You're going to start shooting deer, and that's going to be a lot better than eating carrots and Swiss chard. So a garden will bring that to you. For that matter, plant acorns. If you're out in the country, plant acorns. Plant a system that attracts a lot of life, and that life will sustain you. I look at it in my backyard. I have a fig. I have 2 figs, 2 peaches, 1 pear, 1 plum, 1 pluot. I'm just going off memory. I got about 8 or 10 trees in my backyard. Nectarine. And those things produce abundantly. I don't even eat this stuff. But you know what I see? And this is what kind of entertains me when I'm drinking coffee out of the kitchen table. I see mockingbirds, blue jays, the redbirds, the cardinals. I see them there eating, and they go pick at the pears, and they go pick at the peaches, and they go pick at the figs, and they eat, and they move around, and they go eat worms, and etc. There's a lot of life in that garden, and I'm glad, because they entertain me. But it attracts a lot of life to a fruit tree attracts a lot of life, and you can take the life. If it's rabbits or squirrels, you can take those, right? So, and even with all the birds and everything, I still get an abundant crop that I cannot eat. So it's good. That's one thing. The other thing is that I would not waste much time, other than potatoes, which I like to grow potatoes, and they're very inconspicuous. So they just under the earth. Nobody knows what they are. Sweet potatoes, those have a lot of calories, and they can be preserved for a long time. You leave them in the ground, they stay there forever. Over winter, you can overwinter potatoes, and they'll just stay there, and they don't rot or anything. So that's one way to preserve your harvest. Because he also mentioned about how do you preserve your harvest. Well, potatoes, you can just keep them in the ground. And the other source of starches that you cannot grow very efficiently on your garden, because it's a small plot, it's grains. But lucky for everybody, grains are abundant. You can buy a year supply of rice, corn, and beans for $150. You can just get a lot of stuff for that, and you just put it away. So why would you waste precious real estate growing that stuff? It makes no sense. So I would go. The other thing I would go for is I would try to get some perennials, herbs like oregano, mint, herbs that last you a long time. Basil's not perennial, but it goes maybe 2 years, I think. Parsley, any herb you like, oregano, thyme. I have all those, and those add flavor to anything. Even if you make shallots, you can make shallots and make some garlic and onion soup and add some herbs to it. It's pretty good, actually. So I remember, I'm going to go off on a little tangent here, but just to give you an example of hard times. When I used to go to the Catholic Church many years ago, and don't get me started on that shit right now, because I'm pissed off at those sons of bitches for obvious reasons, but not at the Catholics in general, but at the whole mess that's going on within the Catholic Church. That's a whole different story. Anyway, I used to talk to this priest back when I was 18, 19, maybe 20, I don't remember. And he was a Spaniard priest that had lived through the Spanish Civil War. The Spanish Civil War took place when World War II was taking place. It was a communist against Franco, which was a fascist. And actually, in that part of Europe, the fascists won and the communists lost. But anyway, Franco was no angel either. But they were having such hard times that their meal sometimes was boiled bones that they would boil. I mean, they had been boiling these bones 3 or 4 times already. Boiled bones with some garlic, pepper, and oregano, just to have something warm in your stomach with a little flavor, a little salt. So talk about hard times, right? So that's why I say herbs are good, and they provide vitamins and stuff like that. So I would go with some perennials that you just have them there, and they're very inconspicuous too. You can have them. Most people think they're like weeds and stuff like that. They don't know what they are. So I would go for that. But primarily, I would focus on stuff that you don't have to replant over and over again. That stuff, like I would just buy it. I would just buy the massive calories in a bag. The rice, the beans, lentils, etc. Just buy that stuff and store it away. It keeps very well. Wheat, it stays good for a long time. And I would get some fruits, some fruit trees, some pecans, just because they give you a lot of stuff, and they also attract wildlife that you can harvest to put in the table. So, and I would add some bushes here and there for flavorings to food, like herbs and garlics and onions, things like that. So anyway, folks, that's my 2 cents on that whole thing. I'm not afraid. I wouldn't be afraid of the marauders taking your garden. Marauders want your wife and your kids more than your garden, I think. So be careful with that. I would start gardening right now. If you don't have any experience, let that not be an impediment. Do it. And if something happens and you think it's a high risk to have a garden, well, don't grow it that year. Kick some dirt over it, and that's it. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching, and until next time.